Yes, please, go on. Yes, hello. Yeah, we're on the intersection of 3rd and 4th. Please hurry. Our new series opened with our sort of title character, Sora arriving in Skyland atop a giant chicken. Nah, that's nothing. Where's the moon dancing chicken? But yeah, I guess in place of Spiral, this place seemed to have an economy reliant on these little bird things. We didn't get to see much of it, instead just more focused in on the royals of the season and their forced anniversary references. Oh what, nothing about her being tropical shining or having a delicious smile? But yeah, it was the birthday of their daughter Ale, who thankfully was looking a lot better than some of her initial images. And if anything, she looked better than Ganondorf's punk rock nephew here. Actually, considering this guy's name was Kaba Tone, maybe this is his dad. But yeah, the obvious villain of the season managed to kidnap the princess, which caught Sora's main character senses. We then got the opening of the season that was perfect. Just those first few frames did everything this opening needed to do. Yeah, people were already looking forward to this opening based on the small samples we had heard on YouTube that made it almost sound like something you'd hear more on a late night action anime for the guys like me, rather than something for the Sunday morning crowd. But just these first few shots of Sora and her flowing cape instantly sold us on the more majestic hero themes the show was going for. The rest of the opening flowed very nicely too. It was calm and comforting when it needed to be, and yet it also had strong rising action, starting from when I'm guessing we saw Sora's version of All Might before we cut over to a nice after image of her assuming her superheroine identity as if to follow in the footsteps of that person. From there, we got a little callback to the OG opening ×2. Yeah, the other two Precure, who we'll talk more about at the end of this video, were kind of doing their own thing, and their roles were kind of underplayed, at least compared to Sora and Mashiro, possibly suggesting that they are going to be working separately from our main duel, though there is also a lot of extra space in this last shot. But yeah, a good application of an iconic moment that was used appropriately to signify the unity between the two pairs, that they'll even kind of call back to later in this very episode. From there, we just got some awesome action to give us a bit of an idea of our heroine's movesets, a little bit of them not being too environmentally friendly. Seriously, who would drive a freaking Hummer in this economy? And ending on the aforementioned jump with a lot of noticeable extra space. Back to the episode proper, Capitone was making his escape when the Royal Guard gave chase on their, y'all, I think Square Enix wants to have a little word with you. Oh, and don't think that's the only lawsuit that Toei might have to deal with. Just listen to this BGM. Why, yes, it does sound like someone saying you should run. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's exactly the same, and in fact, I kind of find it a little more subtle than Yuki Hayashi stuff, which I do prefer. But yeah, after pulling off some parkour that would make any member of the Bat family blush, Sora managed to catch up to the Hippo Pig, who was causing some chaos throughout the town. And in a nice subtle bit of storytelling, God, it feels good to be able to say that again, we got to see that Sora wasn't just a hot-blooded idiot, as she managed to psych out Cobbletone and used his momentum against him to save Ale. This was even cleverly emphasized thanks to a bunch of guards trying to stop the surprisingly fast pig in the previous scene with brute force. It of course gave us the impression that Sora was going to do the same, but nope, they did a clever little subversion. What wasn't so clever was...
Welcome to Heaven! Done!
Yeah, thankfully, that was the only legit bad moment in this whole episode, as we then got another display of character in the very next, when Sora clearly hesitated in giving chase to Kabutono after they jumped into a portal that led to who knows where. She certainly didn't, and wasn't prepared for whatever lied ahead. Thus, in a situation like this, regrouping with the Royal Guard and thinking up a new plan might have been the better option, but... And after a little hinting of the larger plot involving the obvious god baby, Sora managed to rescue her thanks to a lucky stray rock. With that, the two shared a pretty sweet moment before exiting the portal to... Damn it, Sora, you forgot rule 1. Never look down! On the ground, we saw more of that accursed merchandise line that they'll never let die, and the deuterogonist of the season in Mashiro Nishigaoka. Okay, so this should be interesting, considering that we know for a fact that this character is going to be voiced by a previous deuterogonist in this franchise. Not to mention, Ai Kakuma does have a pretty impressive range, so I do wonder what kind of voice she's going to put on compared to Ravelin, which is exactly the same. Okay then. I mean, I actually don't have any real issue with it, as that voice does match up with the design. I just think it's gonna make any crossovers with the Healing Good team a little awkward. Speaking of awkward, our two leads had such a meeting as Sora fell from the sky, but thanks to Ale landed safely. And when the two girls tried to make sense of the situation, with Sora being the fish out of water in modern Japan, and Mashiro dealing with the psychotic sky chick in front of her, they just went with the most logical course of action.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, honestly, the two denying reality was the funniest bit of the whole episode for me. Mashiro also picked up Sora's notebook that was looking a little different than what we saw in the final episode of Delicious Party. Gee, I wonder if anything bad is going to happen to it. Sure enough, the brisk pace of this episode wasn't slowing down as Kabuto arrived and introduced us to the monsters of the week, the Ronborgs, whose name is basically a pun on roughhousing, which this knockoff Constructicon was taking part in. Damn it, who let Logan Paul back into the country? Forced to face this surreal reality, Mashiro was given Ale to watch over while Sora dealt with the monster. Understandably, she tried to stop her, but... And while Sora managed to hold her own even without superpowers, she, and I think a lot of the viewers, were surprised by the evil general actually getting involved in the fight and blinding her for just a second. Yet, in spite of taking a nasty blow, Sora kept trying to fight and ended up dropping her notebook in the process. This led to a legit pretty sad moment, as while we haven't really seen much of this notebook until now, throughout this episode, it was clear that Sora was quoting stuff that she had written in it, and now all of her work was being ripped up right in front of her. In a situation like this, it would be perfectly understandable for her to get incredibly angry and or sad over such a loss. However, I'm just guessing that one of her quotes is that heroes never cry over just their own losses and instead prioritize the tears of others. And when you have the approval of Kuga, well, you're pretty much ready for your first Henshin. Please don't sing, please don't sing, please don't sing! Okay, dodge the bullet there. And I honestly mean that, as I think this sequence has more than enough bells and whistles between the multiple camera angles and Sora appropriately jumping all over the place as she transformed into Snow Hatsune Miku atop something that even kind of looked like a Vocaloid stage. Her bouncing around actually matched up very well with the transformation music, so adding vocals to it probably would have been superfluous and would hurt this well-timed and proportioned sequence in my opinion. I think it was just the perfect length, not too long or short, and most importantly, highlighted Sora achieving her little dream of becoming a superheroine, or in this case... Also, maybe it's just me being an old school Digimon fan, but I kind of like her name being in the background, kind of makes it feel more significant. With that, we entered into a fight that was smooth as butter, but a little rougher on the edges with the characters. Now, as I've said, I actually do prefer smoother animation, even at the cost of consistent character designs, but I also do prefer it when it's not too noticeable, especially here with Kabuto actually looking worse than the original Ganondorf. Whatever, it did its job, including doing the classic unexpectedly high jump moment, again done right, as it's meant to signify that the new superheroine was still getting used to her new powers. And fortunately, Sora was a quick learner. With that, Sora ended the fight, to my delight especially, not with a forgettable beam purification, and instead just gave the monster a big megaton punch, and well... You know what, Sora? After all of this, I think you deserve this a lot more than the calorie puncher. And after all that, our episode ended with Kabuto retreating, and our two leads trying to make sense of everything that just transpired. Honestly, I can't blame them. That episode went by in the blink of an eye. From there, we got the ending sequence that, while not quite my cup of tea in terms of the song, and was a bit more of the standard dance sequence fare that we've gotten for the past few seasons, I do give it points for having a changing background and pretty creative transitions through Sora's notebook. And the final shot in front of Skyland was particularly picturesque. So yeah, I think I'll just come out and say it. This was one of the strongest first episodes of maybe this whole franchise. I mean, even putting aside some of the more superficial elements like animation and music, this episode had some very strong storytelling that went by appropriately like a breeze. We got at least a basic sense of the main conflict of the show, and a really good sense of our two main leads so far. Though when you actually do bring in those superficial elements, well, then you start to scratch the classic Precure itch I've been having for about a year now. To clarify what I mean by classic Precure itch, I mean a show densely packed with as much world building, action, and characterization that can be done at a reasonable pace. This first episode managed to get the latter two down great, perhaps at the cost of the world building. Right now, I know about as much as Skyland as I do that video game, but at least we did get down the essentials and did serve its purpose of establishing our lead's fish out of water aspect. But yeah, on that note, Sora was just awesome. Her initial rescue of Ale not only got across her pure skills, but also established that she's not an idiot hothead who can plan things out thanks to some clever storytelling. Said storytelling did just about everything it could to establish her dedication of becoming an ideal superheroine worthy of the title of Precure, with all of it landing and leading to a very satisfying first fight in spite of a little jank animation. And yet, it wasn't just a one-girl show, as while not the focus, Mashiro got some solid character establishment as the straight man to Sora's heroics. For now, she is really out of her element, still being an innocent bystander to all of this, but slowly she's starting to pick up on Sora's determination and steadily gaining an admiration for her. So yeah, for any Yuri fans out there who thought that Delicious Party kind of shortchanged us on that, these two will probably pick up the tab. Hell, even the cartoonishly evil villain Kabuton got a little characterization, establishing himself as a rival to Sora for being the only person to successfully get in his way. And while this episode had some pretty forced dialogue referencing series past, the actual actions our characters perform, like the OG partner pull and shocking high jump, were more than just cheap references and did help to establish these characters in their own right. Little touches like that, on top of everything else, is really starting to sell me on the series more so than maybe any other of the Reiwa era so far. And overall, this was just an excellent first episode that established a ton in just 23 minutes and makes me excited to see what else they can bring to the table. Where the series will fly high or fall like Icarus remains to be seen, but at least for now, we know what time it is. But yeah, why don't we talk about those other two for just a second? Earlier this week, the VAs and slight descriptions of Cure Butterfly and Wing were released, and people were in just a bit of an uproar as both had quote-unquote groundbreaking elements. Starting on the lighter, or at least relatively less talked about of the duo, Cure Butterfly's VA was announced as Ayaka Nanase. And I guess appropriately as the actual pink of this show, she does have the lightest resume compared to the rest of the cast. Not to say she's bad in the slightest, I thought she did a great job as the main character of the very underrated Sakura Quest as Yoshino Koharu. I just do find it reassuring that the actual lead of the show is a little more seasoned this year. And as for the big announcement of this character, well, apparently she's going to be an actual adult, specifically 18, which all I can say to that is...
Okay.
I mean, yes, I know I was the one who made a big fuss out of bringing in an actual adult Cure onto the main team of this franchise in the Polycure review, but one, 18 isn't that much different than 17, only big difference is high school and college. I was thinking more of an actual working adult out of school and at least job hunting, or better yet, a sensei Cure, because that would just make so much practical sense, come on. And two, while Wing's thing was kind of predictable based on that design, Butterfly's design doesn't exactly scream young adult, especially when these three kind of look older to me. The conversation becomes even muddier when Asumi is brought in, who's arguably simultaneously both the oldest and youngest Cure ever, being born as a physically 20-year-old woman. I don't know, it just feels like they're taking one of the babiest of baby steps towards an actual adult here. Hell, Yukari was getting ready for college by the end of her series. Now, nothing against the character, I'm just not currently convinced they'll do much with this aspect of the character, but I'd love to be proven wrong, of course. But really, compared to her partner, yeah, there's a little less to talk about. Okay, so first thing I do want to point out as a fan of Don Brothers is that this character's VA shares the same as Don Murasame. That's pretty cool, and yet for such an unstoppable murder machine, that's a pretty cute voice from a guy. Yes, Ayu Murase is a dude around my age no less, and yet his voice can be easily mistaken for young girls. Some might know him as Kaito Joker, or maybe even that one Leafa sim from SAO, but personally, I know him best as Iruma-kun. We have made a few references to this show on this channel, and if you haven't yet, I absolutely do recommend checking it out, as it's basically My Hero Academia, but in the netherworld from Disgaea. There, Murase plays the title character, who literally had his soul sold to the devil, but said devil just wanted a cute grandson to send to school, where he has to pretend to be a demon as his schoolmates enjoy eating humans for breakfast. It's a really good school comedy that also becomes rather heartwarming when Iruma helps out his classmates, including cross-dressing more than once as an idol. And really, that's kind of why I stick with the sub and not the dub for the show, because honestly, it's kind of entrancing knowing that's a dude singing all that. Stop looking at me like that. But yeah, we're getting our first main team male Cure, though I still say Rio was the 7th member of the Kira Kira, hashtag Cure Waffles for life, and Henri, as well as all of those other randos, were just quick one-off things anyway. And I do see this as a much more significant step forward than Butterfly being a few months older than at least 3 other Cures. And if anything, I do hope it makes up for Takumi's mistreatment in the previous season. Hell, perhaps they could even justify his reduced role as just being a bit of a trial run for this character, along with Memdragon's movie form. And considering he's voiced by a VA I really like, I really do hope they use him well. And that's the key thing with these two. I just hope that they do them well, and that this isn't just a cheap publicity stunt for a season that already has a few publicity stunts going for it. Time will tell how things will work out, but for now, all I'll say is that I'm cautiously optimistic about these two, and if anything, at least so far, it seems like our first two will at least be able to hold up the fort. Jeez, that actually turned out to be a pretty long video, but you know, for a first episode like this, it really deserves it. I'm actually looking forward to covering this series, and if you want to see more, feel free to check us out every week, where hopefully we can do a premiere of these videos, as long as someone doesn't forget to turn on a mic or two. But yeah, be sure to like, comment, and do all of those other things the algorithm wants us to do. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and yeah, I better start going before the edgy Sentai boy finds me.